talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, willing dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairin' on them niggas. We Ric Flairin' on them niggas. You talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, willing dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairin' on them niggas. Yeah, we Ric Flairin' on them niggas. It's apparent these girls staring. I'm Ric Flairin', gold across my chest. I'm fresh to death, I'm Paul Bearing, not at all scary. When I open like Betty Wops and find to these circles that's going in like a carry shot. Woo! I'm going in like a Mary Pop off that Mary Crop at the top flow at the
talking to the Rolex.
Okay, crowd for spilled milk, we in here. You talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, willing dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairin' on them, Flairin' on them. We Ric Flairin' on them, Flairin' on them. To the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, willing dealing, limo jet flying. We Ric Flairin' on them, Flairin' on them. We Ric Flairin' on them, Flairin' on them. situation is preparation with greatness. Industry full of fakeness is really up for the taking. See, life is what happened to you, more so how you take it. Don't get stripped of your knowledge and mentally leave you naked. I like to live otherwise. I'm sorry that I'm fresh to death. I put the polo and apologize. See, black son, we ain't nothing like the mother guys. Quit to socialize, we organize, then we mobilize. Off the deep end like a scuba diver. And no confusion, just keep it pushing like Uber drivers. Woo! Business fresh just like a supervisor in a Gucci visor. Can't find a smoother rhymer. You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, willing dealing, limo jet flying. We Rick flaring on her, flaring on her. We Rick flaring on her. You talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, willing dealing, limo jet flying. We Rick flaring on her, flaring on her. We Rick flaring on her, flaring on her.
Yeah, DQ baby. Shout out that boy Nigga for that fire track. Hey, Black Sun, sun up. What's up, Vinny Vegas? What in Vegas? Yeah. Shout out Pharaoh's Kids, D-Phase. Yeah. Bubba C. Yeah. Rick flaring on him. Rick flaring on him. Rick flaring on him. Rick flaring, sun up, baby.
In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
All rise. The Honorable Judge Jethro Smoke presiding. Case, the People versus Coppin State University. You may be seated. You may be seated in the proceedings. We do apologize here at the courtroom. We were having technical difficulties. I'll make sure we get to that after today's court cases. All right, listen, guys, everybody in the courtroom and the Zoom meetings, I appreciate you for being here. We're back. Happy New Year. Judge Jethro Smoke is in the building. You know, I've been away. You know what I'm saying? It's been crazy, but got to start the new year off right here in the courtroom. All right. So listen, before we get into today's big case of Coppin, listen, I know everybody's been hearing about it. You knew that it was going to come to my courtroom because when you want to get the thing done the best, you got to come to the best. And that's me, Honorable Judge Smoke. All right. Now, there is a case of a matter that we need to talk about first, right? You know, I'm good friends with Scotty from Offscript, and he sent over some of his dealings that he's been going on. And he said, Judge Smoke, can you handle these proceedings? I said, I surely can, and I surely will. All right. All right. So the first case up to date. All right. Kathy didn't know about this one. This was a personal one for me. I apologize for that, Kathy. I'll make sure I get that on my docket next time. All right. Is the case against Kendrick Knows Lockett. Okay. Kendrick Knows Lockett. Now, you know that Offscript, Scotty per se is he's outlandish and he does his own things, but what he will not do is he will not take slander and disrespect. That is what Scotty will not do, and that's why he asked for me to look over these proceedings. Now, this is the case against Kendrick Knows Lockett. Okay. Now, the People versus Kendrick Knows Lockett. All right. Kendrick Lockett has charges of misdemeanor of harassment. All right. 1 count of harassment, 1 count of lack of creativity, and another count of an uneducated trolling. All right. The felony. Now, listen, this is also in my realm, but it could also be part of another realm. Breathing too much air at one time. Now, EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has reached out to Judge Smoke and talk to me about said client and case. I told them once I'm done with my proceeding, they are allowed to go and do whatever they want at their particular time if they want to bring charges against Nose Lockett, okay? But the felony charge of breathing too much air at one time, hey, that's an EPA job. That's what they do. So we'll let them deal with it accordingly. Now, the case against Kendrick Nose Lockett is that he was in Scotty's comments, and this is what he said. He said, "How are you a part of the HBCU community? What yard you come from?" Yard is not spelled correctly, uneducated. "Salute to fictitious Hillman, yet that doesn't count. You're spewing a false narrative on your POV. You are an outsider looking in on HBCU family business. Script." Once again, uneducated. It's not spelled correctly. "So you are the one that's hating Jack, creating false and diverse narratives." There was more to that, but as you all here in the courtroom in the proceedings, you all can see where this was headed, and there's more to come from that, right? So now Kendrick Nose Lockett has also go by a few other names if you hear him around. All right, Kendrick Lockett, aka Big Nostrils. Okay, Big Nostrils. The Airbender. Okay, Grand Nasals. Okay. Kathy, this is getting crazy. Kathy, this is getting outrageous. This is getting outrageous. Double T. Okay. Kendrick Lockett, aka Big Nostrils, the Airbender, Grand Nasals, and Double T. Now you get the Double T from Lockett, clearly, as everything is transpired, but known associates of Big Nostrils and Grand Nasals. All right. Kathy, I need you to stay professional, Kathy. I need you to stay professional. Now, these are the known associates of said Kendrick Nose Lockett. Now, be very mindful. When you see him, you're usually going to see people that look like this around him, okay? So, with the overwhelming evidence, I just wanted to show you all that the known associates that are coming, you know what it is, right? So, Kendrick Nose Lockett, and these are the evidence, and these are pictures from his profile of why said he has his nicknames and the known associates that are arranged with him. I don't have my arrangements. Let me go and fix this, guys. I apologize. I do not have the known associates here ready for you all. Let me get that taken care of really quickly. Nothing but a hop, skip, and a jump of the known associates. Let me get that taken care of. I do apologize, guys. I do apologize. I'm getting that handled as we speak. Let me get that. Boom. All right. Now, because I want you guys to be very wary of these known associates. If you see them, you're probably and knowingly going to also see Lockett as well. Okay. So let me just bring this right up. It shouldn't take me nothing but a quick second. Now, back to the original known associates of Nose Lockett. Okay. Now, this is part of the Mawai gang. Okay. This is part of the Mawai gang. If you do not believe me, you can look these associates up. Okay. Google Mawai gang, Mawai. If you look up Mawai, and you will see what I'm talking about. These are known associates of Nose Lockett. Now you have Big Mo, okay? You have Mick, and then you have Tiny Tim. Now be very mindful when you see said associates that Nose Lockett is not too far. Okay, Nose Lockett is not too far. Okay, so I just wanted to give you the name recognition of understanding who the Mawai gang is, right? And who is all associated with said gang. Now, going back to the evidence, you can clearly see and state why said person is a part of the Mawai gang, why he has the nicknames that he has. All right. It is what it is. Now, the EPA will be bringing charges against said Nose Lockett as well. Once again, I told you he has a felony charge of breathing too much air at one time. Okay, that is an EPA standard that is not here. Listen, I'm going to proceed on it, but that is just what it is. Okay, so after talking to Nose Lockett and his associate, he pleaded no contest. He went ahead and pleaded no contest against the charges. He will be taking whatever comes his way. So that case has been closed, but I just wanted you all to understand and see what Scotty of Offscript is dealing with. Okay, he's dealing with known gang associates in his comments coming at him disrespectfully. Okay, so once again, we do not have time. Okay, we here at the courtroom, nor Scotty has time for Big Nostrils, aka the Airbender, also known as Grand Nasals, and Double T. Okay, so if you see Kendrick Lockett, make sure that you batten down the hatches. Make sure that you're braced in, because those big gulfs of air can catch you. Okay, those big gulfs of air. Now, if you look closely at said pictures, all right, the nose goes. Okay, I mean, it's just it's like Rudolph. Okay, you that's what you're going to see. Okay, that's what you're going to see first. All right, before anything, before he steps out, you're going to see the nose. Okay, so be very careful about what you see. You can clearly see in these pictures how the nose takes over the picture. Okay, you zoom in on the nose, and then everything else is after that. So just wanted to be very mindful. Wanted you all to be safe. Need the public to be safe. And he pleaded no contest to said evidence. So we shall move on to said bigger case. All right. Next case. The reason you're here. Just had to talk about that real quick. Kathy, once again, I apologize for that not being on the docket. All right. Coppin State. The people versus Coppin State. That is what we are here for, and what I am here for as the Honorable Judge Smoke is here. Okay, hey, order in the chat. Okay, no nose jokes. No nose jokes. Order. I need order because we are down here for business. That was off topic. We shall proceed forward. Okay, Kathy, can you hand me my documents, please, for this case? Thank you, Kathy. Now, the people versus Coppin State. Now, this case has made its way to public news. We will say in the HBCU community, it's on the level of, can we say, Snoop Dogg and murder was the case that they gave him. Can we say a little bit of the Tupac, case? So it's very fan fest. And, here at Offscript and at the courtroom, we do not care about the fanfare. We care about getting to the results and getting to the case and getting to the proper sentencing. All right. Now, the people versus Coppin State. The case against Coppin State. It's a long one. Very, very, very intricate and very detailed. But the charges brought against them are hereby read off. Misdemeanor, slander, and defamation. Okay. Lack of common sense. Third count, mishandling of the youth. Okay, I know a lot of you all would say that's a felony, but that has not been established as yet. They brought that case in. They brought those charges as misdemeanors. Now, I think as the years move on, those will now be considered felonies. All right. Number 4, abuse of power. These are the misdemeanors brought up against Coppin State. Now, the felony charges, right? Count 5 of a felony charge, second degree of can't get right. There's a lot of schools getting that nowadays. A lot of schools are being charged with that. Count 6, a first degree of what the hell? What the hell is going on and what the hell are they doing? Okay, felony charge. 7 count, first degree of stupidity of Coppin State. 8 count, first degree of that's just nasty. is just nasty. Okay? Jesus. And the final count of felony charges, multiple counts of this ain't what black people do. This is not as we of people do. Okay? This ain't what we about. But we're going to dive deep. I'm going to break down. I have the plaintiff and the defendant here in the courtroom said. I have Juan, Derek, stand up. Derek is here. Okay. I have all the defendants here for the case. All right. Now, before I get into that, I want to show you the viral video that has been going around. Okay. Said TikTok. Okay. Said TikTok. Here is the viral video that has started the fanfare of this case. Here we go.
Wildest story in the history of college basketball. Former Coppin State basketball player Ivan Williams filed a lawsuit accusing assistant coach Lucien Brownlee of catfishing him and coercing him into sending intimate photos and text. Allegedly, Brownlee had approached Williams online disguising himself as a woman pretending to be romantically interested in Williams. Williams sent explicit photos and videos of himself for years with no clue that those images were going to his assistant coach. Brownlee eventually approached Williams saying that he was also being catfished by the woman and that she was blackmailing them into recording a sexual encounter with each other. Williams agreed to it out of fear that his intimate pictures would get leaked and he would lose his scholarship. He also wanted to protect his assistant coach in the process. After the request was met, Williams stopped responding to the woman, aka assistant coach Brownlee, and Brownlee became so upset that he leaked all the pictures as well as the videotaping. Williams apparently went to his head coach, Juwan Dixon, husband of Real Housewives of Potomac star Robin Dixon, who basically did nothing for Williams and made him show up to practice a day after everything leaked like nothing happened. On top of that, Williams lost his scholarship because of the incident. For more updates on this story, follow Bailey Jackson Sports.
That was the viral video that has been going around and circulating on the TikTok, right? On the TikTok. Now, the defendants charged in this case, including Coppin State University, is Lucien Brownlee, Juan Dixon, and Derek Carter. Okay, Lucien Brownlee, Juan Dixon, and Derek Carter. These are the defendants in said case and Exhibit E. All right. Now, Lucien Brownlee, aka Mr. Zesty, right? Now, this is straight from the documents of the court case. It says plaintiff, that's you, sir. That's you. No, sit down, Zesty. That's you. Okay. Plaintiff blackmailer in November of 2019 was apparent knowledge of plaintiff's schedules and availabilities, demanded that the plaintiff record and send a video of said plaintiff. Now, remember, plaintiff is Mr. Williams in this case, okay? The plaintiff and the people. So when you see plaintiff, you're thinking of Mr. Williams, right? So he sent the video of the plaintiff, Lucien Brownlee, engaging in oral solicitations. We'll just say solicitations. In the face of threat of an exposure and loss of his position on the basketball program and his financial support, and with the insistence and urging of Coach Brownlee, the plaintiff acquiesced. Now, Mr. Zesty, here in the documents of the proceeding, you, sir, went out of your way to catfish a young man, allegedly, to get you involved in sexual acts and sexual perversions? Is this in the year of 2023? Are there not proceedings to where you and your sexual orientation are allowed to be very rampant and frolic happily? So to coerce said plaintiff in what the dealings that you were trying to deal with him, I do not understand. Order. You will speak when spoken to, Zesty. You will have your chance to speak. It is mine. Order, Zesty. Order. Now, this was brought up by the plaintiff, Mr. Williams, in this case. Now, also brought up by the plaintiff in this case was the plaintiff was directed by Coach Dixon to attend practice. Mind you, following the day, the defendant Dixon met personally with the plaintiff. Now, let me jump back, right? So earlier, before said player or plaintiff, Mr. Williams, met with Juan, Mr. Dixon, his videos and photos had been leaked to the team. And he then proceeded to go to his head coach to then inform him of what was going on, and this is what transpired. The defendant, Juan Dixon, admitted to the plaintiff that Lucine Brownlee, aka Mr. Zesty, that is you, sir, was mentally ill or otherwise emotionally imbalanced, and that his history was known to coach and Mr. Carter and the school. So you, Juan, let me get this straight, Mr. Dixon. You understood that Mr. Zesty was under mental strain, was also emotionally unstable, and you then proceeded to allow said young man to be the director of basketball operations and recruiting. You felt that was a good judgment? Did you think that was prudent on your behalf, sir? That you thought that, understanding that the man had emotional unstableness, as you said, as the plaintiff reiterated, he said, Juan Dixon, that is you, sir, admitted to the plaintiff that Lucy Brown was mentally ill or otherwise emotionally imbalanced. You knew that. That is what the plaintiff is accusing you of, that you understood that Mr. Zesty was emotionally unstable and imbalanced, and you still felt the need to have him be around your team, to have him be the director of basketball operations for said team, and continue to have this young man around the coach, even though you understood what he. Okay, I'm not seeing good judgment in this. The defendant Dixon again confirmed his awareness of Coach Brownlee's instability later that same evening in a phone call to the plaintiff's brother and father, where defendant Dixon repeated that Lucine was sick and had a troubled background. Now, you, Mr. Dixon, hold on, Mr. Dixon. You'll get your chance. You, Mr. Dixon, then proceeded to call the plaintiff's father and his brother to also let them know that the same coach was emotionally unstable and ill. But I asked you, Mr. Dixon, and this is your chance to speak. I asked you, when were you going to take accountability for hiring said man? When were you going to take accountability for hiring Mr. Zesty? You knew what he was. You knew what Mr. Brownlee was. You didn't see anything wrong with hiring Brownlee, Mr. Zesty, to be overwatchers of men on your team? Is the institution in your job to not oversee the health and well-being of your men? You didn't know he was Zesty when you hired him? You didn't see the tambourine player in him when you hired him? It's not to say that the zestiness was the problem. It's just that he was zesty and emotionally unstable. Emotionally unstable, mentally unstable, and zesty. You didn't see any issues with that? You didn't. Okay. I'm asking you. But okay, you said you didn't see anything wrong with that, Mr. Dixon. Okay, we'll proceed on. We will proceed on. Now, also, in this document, what you're seeing a clip of is from the actual court documents in my hand, right? And what I did was I clipped it and I then wrote it clear so you guys can read it. It says, in attempt to bring the foregoing situation to light, Derek Carr, Muggle, Mr. Muggle, look like a, little pug in the face. Yeah, that's you, sir. In attempt to bring foregoing situation to light, the plaintiff requested Coppin State University conduct its own review of the harassment, sexual assault, and the blackmail that had been required to endure. Now, if Mr. Carter, Derek Carter, is that correct? That's correct, Derek Carter. Now, you, Mr. Carter, you being the director of athletics, how did you? I'm trying to get this. Let me understand this. You're the director of athletics, and this went over your head. Like you didn't. I mean, the young man came to the coach. Did the coach not come to you at some point and tell you what was going on? Because if that's the case, that is a negligence on the coach. But at some point in time, the negligence also fell at your door because you are the director of athletics. And the fact of what is said in these documents is that the attempt to bring forward a situation to light, the plaintiff requested the school. That is the administration above him. That is not his coach. His coach is not a part of requesting a sexual. His coach has no say in the review of a sexual assault or sexual harassment or anything like that. So that falls on your doorstep. That falls on the president's doorstep. That falls on the Title IX administrator, if you said so have one, which you should. Those are the titles that should be held accountable to this. And the fact of the matter that you're sitting in my courtroom in your suit with a Coppin State pin on lets me still know that you're still employed by said institution. And I'm curious to see why. I am curious to see why Coppin State, you and Juan still are employed by said institution. I am curious. I don't know what you have on said institution, but there is no way that this, just to the glory of malfeasance, this is to the highest level of negligence, that you're still employed by a state institution, mind you. By a state institution where you failed this young man in all your due diligence of being his, you're supposed to be his, if we're not saying we're supposed to be his safe space. If we're being honest, the school is supposed to be his safe space. The school is supposed to be where this young man, Mr. Williams, could turn to his coach, could turn to his AD, could turn to the HBCU that is supposed to be an overwatcher of brothers and sisters of color and minorities, but yet still has failed him. And yet you are still employed by said institution. That's wild. That's wild. Now, I want to be very clear with this. There's a lot of things that have gone on in this case. To where even reading in the documents that said that the young man was having suicidal thoughts. I want to be very clear to you, Mr. Zesty, for you, Mr. Dixon, and to you, Derek Carter, and for the administration of Coppin State and to the president of Coppin State University. Mental health is real. Mental health is real. And the worst thing that the institution of Coppin State, the Derek Carr, the AD, to Juan Dixon is that you overlooked this young man's trauma of what he was going through, not knowing if he could turn to the only people that he felt should have had his back. Now, the only person fired that is let go that I can clearly see it is not repping Coppin State is AKA Mr. Zesty, Mr. Brownlee. It is clear in this courtroom that Coppin State does not care about said well-being of the institution, because the same coach, who's to say that Mr. Dixon and Mr. Carter have not done this already to somebody else? Who's to say that Mr. Dixon and Mr. Carter have overlooked multiple incidences of young men and women going through said issue? Not the same, but said issue of another harassment, of another incident on campus that they have overlooked, that they did not tend to. Who is to say? But what I can say is that mental health is real, and that the fact of that you, Mr. Dixon, and you, Mr. Carter, did not go above and beyond for this young man's mental health and state of being, and then on top of everything else, the fear that held this young man in bondage was the fear of losing his scholarship. I want you all to sit and think about that. That a piece of paper, a monetary amount tied to a piece of paper, is what kept that young man in silence, because him being worried about losing said scholarship. Not the fact of him feeling less than a man with the incidences that were going on, the things that he was asked to do with AKA Mr. Zesty. Not that. That's not what kept him bondage. That's not what kept him quiet, of him doing something out of his sexual orientation, or what he felt comfortable with. Not that. Him being held down because he did not want to lose a piece of paper with a financial amount on it. I want to tell you all right now, you are lucky that this is a civil case. Because if I was a judge proceeding over criminal charges, I would lock all three of you up. I would lock all three of you up, because you are all complicit on this said incident. You are all complicit. Mr. Zesty of the act, Mr. Dixon of overlooking the act, and Mr. Carter not fulfilling with his due diligence of investigating said act. All three of you should be locked up right now. But this is a civil case, and we're going to keep it civil. But I want to let you all know that if it was up to the plaintiff and his representation, that I would file criminal charges on every single one of you. And the fact that you don't understand how mental health in this day and age, especially for the faux pas that our Black community looks upon mental health, you should be brought up for cause just because. Mental health is real. And I would tell anybody looking to play at Coppin State men's basketball team under Juan Dixon, I would not. I would not. Because think of how it, now, Mr. Dixon, no. I'm not your wife, sir. Relax. Order. I will hold you in contempt, Mr. Dixon. Now, I'm not robbing. Okay? I'm not robbing. Watch yourself. If I was a young man looking to play basketball for Coppin men's basketball under this head man coach, couldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. And if I was a parent watching these proceedings who has an offer from Coppin State, I would intuitively turn it down Because I say this to you. If an act this big was overlooked by the head coach and the athletic director, what are the smaller acts that could be going on? Hazing, verbal abuse, physical abuse. There's a lot of other things that are smaller incidents that I don't believe that Juan Dixon and Mr. Derek Carter are up to the job of upholding, of doing their due diligence to making sure these young men are taken care of. But we're going to move forward. And Mr. Dixon, I warned you last time being in my courtroom. When you came in and you was talking reckless to Robin in your divorce, I warned you last time. I said, I don't want to see you again in my courtroom. Now, I know I am from Maryland, and I appreciate what you did for the University of Maryland, the national championship. I'm a fan. You and Steve Blake was killing. But that has no bearing in this courtroom. And I'm going to steal the slogan from my man, Scotty, DMV, you're good with me, not today. Not today, sir. So I just want to let you know that the last time I saw you in my courtroom with the proceedings of your divorce, I told you I didn't want to see you again. And now here you are. So don't think that I won't bring the rod of justice down upon you. Okay. I just wanted to let you know, Mr. Dixon, this is not. So once again, these are the current statuses of said defendants on Exhibit E. Now, Mr. Zesty, a.k.a. Mr. Zesty, has been fired, has been let go, has been terminated by Coppin State. But Juan Dixon is still coaching, and the AD is still ADing. So, how can we view Coppin State in a manner of the well-being for young men and women and athletes when the perpetrators and the people complicit in said incidents are still working at said institution? How can the kids look to their administration when such a diabolical act has been done with such lack of oversight? I'm not understanding it. I'm not understanding it. How you, Mr. Dixon, and you, Mr. Derek, still have jobs. I don't understand it. Coppin State, you must have something on Coppin State, because if you were working for me, Kathy, ain't that right? If they were working for me, they'd have been fired. A long time ago. Long time ago. Now, we're going to take a break. I'm going to go in my courtroom and I'm going to proceed on a verdict of what I feel is righteous for said case. Because, mind you, this is a civil case. This is not a criminal case. So there will be no criminal charges brought upon said people. And I thank all of you in the Zoom for keeping it and maintaining order and watching said court case. I, Judge Smoke, will be taking calls after the proceedings of the case. So I will return to my judge in my chambers, and we will then proceed forward. And I'm back. Oh, here we go. Let me get to my papers and my graphic. All right. Kathy, if you could read off the charges and the findings.
Sure thing, Judge. And good afternoon. So, for misdemeanor and count 1 of slander and defamation, we have found Mr. Zesty guilty. Count 2 of misdemeanor, lack of common sense. Mr. Zesty has been found guilty.
And these are for all the defendants, Kathy.
Thank you, Judge. Count 3, mishandling of the youth. We have found the AD. We have found Juan Dixon. And last but not least, Mr. Zesty is certainly guilty. Misdemeanor of count 4, abuse of power. The AD, Mr. Dixon, and Mr. Zesty are all guilty.
Moving on to the second degree.
All right, here. I'm just waiting for my screen to catch up with yours, Judge. Thank you. For the felony charges against said defendants, second degree of can't get right, they have all been found guilty. First degree of what the hell, they have been found guilty. First degree of stupidity, they again have been found guilty. And we have the first degree of that's just nasty. They have all been found guilty.
And the final count, Kathy, if you could read that off for me.
Sure, Judge. All right. And for the final count today, multiple counts of this ain't what black people do. All three, excuse me, Judge, I took vacation in Jamaica, of the defendants have been found guilty.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that reading. And we will go straight into sentencing at this point in time. I have thought long and hard about what I feel should come with this. I've been watching my brother. What's the brother from the Pan African that I watched, Kathy? Umar. I've been watching my brother Umar Johnson. Shout out to my brother Umar. And he's been giving out lashes lately. 10,000 lashes, 5,000 lashes. I felt some lashes do need to be given out to these three brothers. That's y'all three. Y'all three in the front. All right. Best is Zesty, Dixon, and AD. But let me talk to you all for a minute. I have never on my time in the bench seen such a lack, a big pile of negligence on so many attributes. We understand what Mr. Zesty was and what he did. That is just diabolical in itself. But the two administrative positions that were put in place, that to me is the biggest malfeasance of this whole trial and this whole case, is that the people put in power to be put in position over the young man, Mr. Williams, was not there to be his help and to be his rudder, to guide him through this process and to guide him through a healthy situation. That is my biggest issue. And for that, my recommendation to Coppin State, and Coppin State is lucky that they're not put on criminal charges as well, because if I was the defendant, I would be suing the actual institution. But My recommendation is one that you two be fired, that the state of Maryland should not allow either one of you all to be in a public institution. I say that again, that the state of Maryland should not allow Juan Dixon or Derek Carter to be in a position of power over anyone. Take that mess somewhere else, because in the state of Maryland, that should not be allowed. So you should not be employed in the state of Maryland. Also, I'm putting you Bamas on probation for 10 years. And that if you are in a position at another state, that they will have to report back to the state of Maryland what your position is and that you have oversight at said position. And last but not least, 10,000 lashes for both of you. And Mr. Zesty, you just zest. You go somewhere and zest, okay? Because you're fired. That has been today's hearing and trial between the people and Coppin State. There will be no, in a civil case, I cannot give jail time. This is not a criminal case. This is a civil case. All right. That's why I have to ask that they be fired, give them probation, give them oversight and lashes. Okay. I cannot put them in jail because this is not a criminal proceeding. This is a civil matter. Now, if Mr. Williams would just so forth like to go and make criminal charges, that is his right, and he is up to do so. But from there, that is what it is. Call lines will be open to be taken. Let me get those set up. If you would like to call in and give your thoughts on the today's proceedings,
you are the only participant in the conference.
You can go ahead and call in 518-263-8124, 518-263-8124 if you would like to speak on
all participants are muted.
Now, listen. I want you all in the chat, in the Zoom chat, to understand the power that you hold. And the power that you hold is simple, is that you can reach out to people at the Coppin State, senators, congressmen in the state of Maryland, and ask that they have some dealings regarding this, that Juan Dixon be fired, that Derek Carter be fired. Because these two people still getting paid by this university, still getting paid by the state, should not be transpiring, and they should not be allowed to make a living off of putting that said young man in the bind that he was put himself in, that they put him in. Hey, caller, you live.
Yes, Judge Smoke. This is Carlton Gumble. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Gumble. How are you?
I'm doing okay, sir. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year's.
Yeah, I have a few questions for you, sir. The first question goes back to your first courtroom person, Mr. Lockett. Is it safe to assume that he could smell what the rock is cooking?
It is safe to say that. Being a nose above the rest, it allows him to do things that are unprecedented. Like I said, the EPA does have him on their top wanted list of the air that he breathes in. And listen, it's a safety hazard. Okay. At the end of the day, it's a safety hazard for others. So I really see why the EPA is doing what they're doing.
And then the follow-up question to that, sir, is that I heard that he was recently served a cease and desist by the estate of the late Humpty Hump from Digital Underground for false impersonation. Can you speak on that, please?
I cannot speak on that, but it would listen. Now, Humpty's nose is a little lighter than Lockett's nose. So it could be some mistaken identity. It could be that. But from my understanding, I haven't heard anything about that.
Okay, and then and now to the current situation. Is it safe to say that Coach Juan Dixon goes by the alias of Mr. Juan Dingo? And the second question,
yeah, no, go ahead with your second question, Mr. Gummel.
And then the second question is, did Mr. Zesty take this job in an attempt to work on his ball handling skills?
Now, he was a former player. He was a guard at Coppin State, so it wouldn't be remiss. I would be remiss to say if he did not take the position he was the director of basketball operations, and you was part of this. Listen, you could the ball handling could have been a reason. Could have been a reason for that. It could have been. I can't speak on it too clearly, but it could have been a reason for the ball handling.
Okay, well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gummo. I appreciate the phone call. Listen, I never mind. I never mind. I am not capping. He actually did play at Coppin State. He was a former basketball player at Coppin State. So that is not a lie. Listen, maybe he saw a future in being a director of basketball operations, which allowed him to do a lot of ball handling. I don't know. All right. I do not know. But at the end of the day, what I do know is that the fact that that young man was allowed to prey on Mr. Williams the way he was because of a scholarship and because of his fear of losing said scholarship, and then the defendants taking his scholarship. With everything that happened, he ended up still losing his scholarship. And for the people that are late to the courtroom and don't know what happened, I'm going to play the video again so you guys can have an understanding of what happened.
It might be the wildest story in the history of college basketball. Former Coppin State basketball player Ivan Williams filed a lawsuit accusing assistant coach Lucien Brownlee of catfishing him and coercing him into sending intimate photos and texts. Allegedly, Brownlee had approached Williams online disguising himself as a woman, pretending to be romantically interested in Williams. Williams sent explicit photos and videos of himself for years with no clue that those images were going to his assistant coach. Brownlee eventually approached Williams saying that he was also being catfished by the woman and that she was blackmailing them into recording a sexual encounter with each other. Williams agreed to it out of fear that his intimate pictures would get leaked and he would lose his scholarship. He also wanted to protect his assistant coach in the process. After the request was met, Williams stopped responding to the woman, aka assistant coach Brownlee, and Brownlee became so upset that he leaked all the pictures as well as the videotaping. Williams apparently went to his head coach, Juwan Dixon, husband of Real Housewives of Potomac star Robin Dixon, who basically did nothing for Williams and made him show up to practice the day after everything leaked like nothing happened. On top of that, Williams lost his scholarship because of the incident. For more updates on this story, follow Bailey Jackson Sports.
The malfeasance that has just ran rampant is just beyond me. It's just beyond me. I am waiting for one of my reporters to call in. They said they have notes on said incident. I will try to get them on the call. I definitely believe that he needs to be let go. At the end of the day, the fact that he is still running that program is just malfeasance beyond belief. Uh, 0292, you are live with Judge Smoke.
Hello. Hello, Judge Smoke. Hello, hello. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
Well, first of all, this is messy, to say the least. I feel like one of the biggest things, especially me coming in the courtroom late, sometimes CPT and such, you show up a little late. But one of the biggest things I noticed, or maybe I missed it, was maybe like a lack of a statement from the university as a whole. I've seen like other people announcing and speaking about it as more like of a gossip situation versus an actual like situation where a person was harmed and dealt with years of tormenting and abuse. And I feel like that's one of the things that needs to be revisited, not just like as a civil matter, but possibly as a criminal matter, because at the end of the day, these people have a duty to report things. And I feel like after 2-3 seasons of not reporting something, you need to be looked at as an institution as to what else you could possibly be hiding and so on and so forth. That's my first thing that I've noticed.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I think the second thing as well is if you have this information and then you also have ties to, say, a reality show, i.e. Miss Robin Dixon, I just feel like in the entirety of it, not saying that the show itself or the reality show itself will have it, but they can definitely profit off of this information in the future, kind of to capitalize off of getting more clicks, more views, more attention. And honestly, if this were to go into further proceedings, which I believe they are going to actually sue the university, they need to kind of be held accountable as well and need to know the rundown of, hey, this should not be discussed. If it is discussed, we'll take this to court as well. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's very messy on their part. And I think the biggest issue I have, especially me personally working at a university, is you do have a duty to report. It doesn't matter what level. But I feel like there's more people that know. And I feel like we should have more witnesses coming to the stand, because I just feel as though a lot of people are just hiding under the table trying to avoid all of this, but ain't nothing else that you can do other than say what you saw, because lying is a whole lot worse than not saying anything at all. That'll take you to jail, honey. That's perjury.
Absolutely.
That's a whole nother ball.
Absolutely. I want to get back to the fact of them not making a statement, which you spoke on earlier. And I agree with you. I think as an institution, you would come out as a institution and say, you're adamantly against what has transpired against the said student. But at the same time, I also know you can't comment on pending litigation. So it's a bit of both for the institution. But what I would have believed and what I would have hoped for is that the institution would have made a move very quickly to distance itself from its athletic director and Juan Dixon. In that part, I'm very appalled that they have not made that breakaway.
Oh yeah. And I think the current president at COPPIN, he was my president when I was in undergrad. So I'm familiar with him, and it's very weird to see him not comment on things like this, because he's very ahead of the ball. But it might be a thing where a lot of presidents don't get the opportunity, or shouldn't get the opportunity, to address these situations. But I know a lot of people are comparing it to Manti Te'o, but if they was really comparing it to that situation, I feel like one of the biggest things I noticed is how quick Notre Dame was to jump out in front of it. They already had their statement prepared. They already had all this stuff happen. So it was more of a matter of when it would drop, and people are already talking about it. So now they're kind of, in my opinion, behind the ball. That situation probably was handled a whole lot differently at Notre Dame outside of what they just said, like in the documentary and stuff. And the other thing is, I hope that it doesn't become one of those things where we dramatize it to the point where this person has to relive that stuff like over and over again. But yeah, I just feel like one of the biggest things is, as an institution, is to kind of get ahead of it. And I feel like the ball is it's gonna snowball into something much more than they need to, especially knowing that there is a potential that there is some type of civil suit that they're gonna have just due to defamation and all the other things.
I think for me, in the last point, I think for me, what makes this a little bit worse than the Monte Teo situation is that Monte Teo was a part of Notre Dame, but the situation wasn't transpiring at Notre Dame. It was more,
right.
You know what I'm saying? This one what makes it so bad is that the institutions, people that they put in place were the ones hurting said student. They were the ones that were implicated in the incident of the catfishing. So that's what makes it even worse. And then the fact that he went to his administration at said institution, asked for an investigation, and they failed to do their due diligence on that part as well, just kind of snowballs this thing into making it a lot bigger than if it would just nipped in the bud in the beginning. The kid keeps a scholarship, they fire him. And, Juan Dixon does right by the young man, but, you have overlookers and people don't think that stuff gets out. And this is what happens.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But we'll see what happens over time. I guess it's still early, so we can't really address it in its entirety, but we'll see how the institution as a whole will react because those are their employees. And yeah, that's all I really had to say. It's messy. That's all.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the call. All right. Well, that is my time. I've been Judge Smoke. That is my time. I appreciate you all for coming to today's courtroom. Now, mind you that there will be some other avenues going on later on today. I do know my man Scotty will be having some shows. I know he does his Afterglow show at 8 with Kofi Hemingway. Cannot wait to hear that. All right, as well as some other things that are transpiring today as well. So I appreciate you all. Court is dismissed.